Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for the Genealogy Center for inviting us from the Delaware Public Archives. A little bit about who we are. The Delaware Public Archives was established in 1905, making us one of the oldest state archives in the country. Our mission is to preserve and share the cultural, social, and legal history of the first state and its people. Today, we'll be talking about how to research your family genealogy and family history with the resources here at the Delaware Public Archives. In your handout that I provided, you'll see on one side of it is a pedigree chart, which I'm sure all of you as genealogists have seen before. But if you have not seen it before, it's a great reminder that genealogy starts with you. You are the first point, and you are the root of that tree as you fill out the branches and do your research. So a good idea with any genealogy research is to start writing down all the information that you know about your family or think you know, and be sure to start with any of your living family members to establish those details. Okay, let's jump right into the records. The lifeblood of any genealogist is vital statistics. Vital statistics, of course, are records kept by the state of births, deaths, and marriages. These are legally registered in the state of Delaware. By law, it was established in 1913. The records that we have here at the archives are public records. Birth records in the state of Delaware are made public after 72 years. So anyone born before 1952 or 1952, their birth records are available. Marriage records are made available after 50 years and death records after 40. The example that you see here is an example of a death certificate. You'll note that in the top right corner, although it's a little bit faded, is a certificate number. So in order to find vital statistics within the archive, it's a two-step process. We have an index by year, and you would access that in our microfilm. And then from there, each individual is listed alphabetically. Once you find the index for that individual, you'll note down the certificate number and then find the certificate based on that by the year. Records before 1913 can also be searched through index cards in our research room. Now, of course, as we are virtual and most of you may not be able to visit us here in Dover, Delaware, we do accept research inquiries by email. And of course, we would be happy to look those up for you. We cannot conduct extensive genealogical research, but we are happy to look up specific references. Within the index cards in our research room, we do have records prior to 1913 that are compiled records from various sources, such as Bibles, court records, etc. We also have some county records beginning around 1861 for the three counties of Delaware. Newcastle County have the most complete records, particularly in and around the city of Wilmington. And Kent and Sussex counties are a little bit more sporadic, but we do have quite a few records as well from there. Marriage applications can provide a great deal of information beyond just the certificate. They are organized by county. Again, Delaware has three counties: Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex. The marriage applications can show additional information about the bride and groom, including previous marriages, residences, occupations, and those sorts of things. These are actually held in the Justice of Peace record group, and that's how you would access these records. Prior to 1913, Bible records can provide an excellent source for vital statistics. Families would compile information about births, marriages, and deaths in their family Bibles. Our collection of family Bible records are things that were donated to the archive. We don't keep the actual Bible; those are returned to the families, but we do keep a record of the information provided therein, as well as copies made from those initial pages. These are not digitized and do exist only on paper. So this, again, would be something to either access in person or via research inquiry. We also have binders of newspaper abstracts. These are compiled from very early newspapers in the state of Delaware. These have an index, which you'll see on the left, that reference a page number, that reference a newspaper abstract. So these cover births, deaths, and marriages between the years of 1789 and 1850. So very early records, but they will provide you with information such as this one provided in the example. We looked up a Christopher Armstrong and found that he was wed to a Miss Lydia Miller in Newcastle County on October 15th of 1789. We also have a compiled record of tombstones. We have several different tombstone records available. The Tatnall Tombstone Collection is a compilation of tombstone inscriptions that were gathered by Walter G. Tatnall, one of our former state archivists. It's organized by county and then divided into the individual cemeteries. The date range for the Tatnall collection is between 1700 and 1933. We also have for Sussex County, which is our lowest county in the state, the Hudson Tombstone Collection, whose records date back to 1700 and go to around 1900. Now, of course, noting in any cemetery record, you will find the name of the deceased, often including birth and death dates, sometimes the names of their parents as well. We also have some published, i.e. book records of tombstone collections for Kent County, the Dill books, and then the Downstate Genealogical Society has a 5-volume set of Sussex County tombstone cemetery records. These, of course, are infinitely valuable for genealogists, providing information such as the name of the deceased person, their birth date, death date, their age, occasionally the names of the parents, and sometimes their familial status. Oftentimes they are very useful as well because people, of course, were buried in plots together with close familial relations. These records also include the locations of the church or the cemetery, which can give clues to the location, of course, where your ancestor lived, as well as what church they might have been affiliated with. Within our records, we also have probate and will records. These are kept by the individual registers of wills for each county, beginning in 1682 to the present day. Depending on what sort of property was owned by your ancestor or the circumstances of their death, you may or may not find a probate or a will. The indexes for all 3 counties can be found on our website as well as in the research room. They're extremely valuable to genealogists. In many instances, they're only known source of relevant information for the individual, such as their date of death or their deceased spouse name or their children or parents, siblings, in-laws, neighbors, associates, relatives, even their place of residence. Some probates may have the name of an appointed administrator. Some may or may not contain a will, so it is always useful to check to see if it does. But most have an inventory list of items that were included in the estate and the administration in order to settle outstanding debts. If a will is not found within the probate file, it's a good idea to check the will book index to see if a will was created. Not all people researched how to probate or a will. The index includes the name of the deceased for who the files were created, and the dates correspond to the date of the documents that the individuals file, not necessarily the date of the will. In the town of Milford, we have a very unique collection compiled by a Dr. Thomas Enos, who kept very detailed birth and death records between 1893 and 1909. It is a very specialized collection, but very, very valuable because, of course, this was prior to state recorded vital statistics, and Dr. Thomas Enos took it upon himself to compile these records for us. We also have manuscript and published genealogies. So these are filed by family name and include the genealogical information for many Delaware families. This collection exists on paper, and a checklist has been created for easy reference. We also have many published sources in our book collection. Another type of genealogical collection is the Florence Lewis collection. This is a collection of notes, Bible records, ledgers, land records, correspondence, and charts that Florence Sherman Davis Lewis compiled in her own research. The records in this collection date back to the early 1700s up until the mid-1950s and cover a whole host of families throughout Delaware. There is a list of the family names included here on the slide. Although this collection involved research on a limited set of families, you can use it to aid the research of ancestors that had relations to these individual families or may have ties to these surnames. Joseph Brown Turner was a Presbyterian minister who lived the first part of the 20th century and collected genealogy on approximately 3,000 Delmarva families, mainly from the 17th to 19th centuries. This is a large collection containing various types of records in the form of notes and correspondence, as you can see demonstrated in the slide. It includes an index that refers to all the items within the collection and allows genealogists to easily search for their ancestors by name and locate their records. This collection is on microfilm and can also be found on our website. We also have a small manuscript collection. Within this small manuscript collection are a number of very interesting records that are kept. This one example here is from the Vietnam mailbag collection, where individual soldiers were invited to write in to a local journalist about their experiences during the Vietnam War. As you can imagine, the stories are really detailed and illustrative about the soldiers who served. They included pictures as well as biographical information. We also have extensive church records. Church records date back from the 1660s through the 21st centuries. They record baptisms, probationers, ex-members, marriages, and of course, those can be wildly important for genealogists, including minutes of meetings, parishioners' lists, deaths, and marriages included there. This is actually a record of a Sunday school log. So again, you can see the individual names listed. We also have from the Sons of the American Revolution Delaware's chapter, an applications collection. This was donated from the Sons of the American Revolution. It includes applications made between 1890 and 1976. So as we approach our 250th anniversary of American independence, of course, there's a wide degree of interest in people joining both the Sons and Daughters of the American Revolution. And this is a great resource as you can then link to previously made applications based on these entries. Within Delaware, we have a program called Century Farms. This recognizes farms that have belonged to the same family for over 100 years. The applications included in this collection give the name of the farm owner, their address, details about the farm, such as the number of acres, the crops that were grown there, the date of the original purchase by their ancestors, a description of the land, a list of all family owners, and information on the first owner, including building and any crops or livestock raised. We also have extensive military records, such as muster rolls, pension applications, returns, vouchers, discharge papers, and this can contain a great deal of information about a person's biography, including the soldier's name, birth date, birthplace, their race, their marital status, their occupation as a civilian, as well as their occupation once enlisted, their immediate family members, etc. Some of the more unique types of information that can be found in these records are rank, unit, military service number, the places that they were stationed, their entry and exit dates, any awards or honors that they were given, and the place of date of death if the death occurred during military service. These files often contain supporting documentation, such as narrative of events or special service achievements. So collections within our military records that might be of interest are our Revolutionary War muster rolls, our Revolutionary pension records, oaths of allegiance, militia records, particularly for the War of 1812. We have Civil War military service records. We have an entire collection of Delaware in World War II. We also have a World War II memorial volume, and of course, as I mentioned before, the Vietnam mailbag. Deed records, of course, are a written legal document transferring ownership of property from one person to another, and deeds are kept at a county level in Delaware. These can provide very useful historical and legal information for genealogical research. Parts of the deed include the date of sale, the date of recording, the name of the buyer and seller, and the county and state of residence, the amount of money for the sale, description of the property, signatures, and witnesses. These types of land records give us insights into our ancestors, including their age, their place of birth, their citizenship, their military service, their literacy, their economic status, and potentially their family members as well. These can provide clues about your ancestor and their family, including they may have sold land to a child or sibling. The deed may show distribution of land after a parent has passed to their children as an inheritance. A deed may mention the previous place of residence, and deeds often give the names of adjacent property owners who might be parents or cousins or children or families or friends, because often, of course, as we know, families live close together. Information from these land records will lead to other types of records, such as probate or court records, marriage records, military records, even immigration and naturalization records. They can establish the location of land ownership, including settlement dates. Which brings us to maps. In 1868, an Atlas of Delaware was created and published by Daniel G. Beers. So known colloquially as the Beers Atlas, these maps are organized by hundred. Now, hundred is a very specific organization within the counties here in Delaware. Each county is divided into individual hundreds. In this case, this gives you an example of Dover Hundred and Little Creek Hundred. These maps are highly detailed and list names of the landowners. So if you know the general locale of your ancestor, you may find them on a Beers map. The map will show you more than just their name and a certain piece of land, but also who their neighbors were. Beers maps are detailed and have information like rivers, creeks, swamps, and road names. Railroad stations, where post offices are located, are also included on the maps. The Chancery Court records were mainly concerned with property disputes. Often these disputes were between family members, which sometimes had already gone through orphans court, which we'll talk about in a moment. If it was between family members, usually all of the names are listed and sometimes going back several generations. This includes married names of women along with their husbands, which oftentimes aren't found in other contemporary records. We have an index of Chancery Court records by complainant and an index by the name of the deceased, of which the property is being divided. Sometimes the person that is mentioned in a Chancery Court case can be the only proof of their birth during a certain time period if a record of birth was not found. And of course, Chancery Courts include these wonderful records that often have very detailed plot maps, which include incredible diagrams like this little house that you see here, one of my favorites. Orphans courts. Orphans courts existed to ensure children's rights when a father passed. And this is specific to distribution of property before women were allowed to own property if they were married. Most women would remarry in the 18th or 19th centuries, and any property that had become hers when her husband died would transfer to her new husband. If there was not a will, a widow would be given a dower and a third of the property. The rest would be equally divided between the children. So this is to ensure that the children of one marriage did not become disowned by any subsequent marriages. The Orphans Court records can contain information about the property itself, but may also include guardian accounts that detail the expenditures made for the children. This includes anything from work being done to the house and property, what's planted on the fields, to doctor's visits, school expenses, even clothing that was purchased. There's an index by the name of the deceased person, i.e. the parent, and an index by the child's name. If the child is female and married, then the index is in her new married name. It includes any children found in the file, whether they are minors or adults. The Orphans Courts ended in 1970, and the duties of the Orphans Court were split between Chancery Court, Family Court, and Superior Court. Tax assessment records. These can be similar to census records in terms of information that's provided, but of course, whereas census records happened every 10 years, assessments took place approximately every 2 years. So they can provide information about your ancestors in a specific place and time, and can often fill in those gaps between censuses. Not only do they provide information about the property, including farm animals that were owned, but also the number of occupants within the property at the time that the assessment was performed. These documents record mostly men on the tax list, as it was uncommon for a woman to be the head of the household, but not impossible. And some will give the acreage of land being taxed. Included in these, of course, are also very useful when searching for enslaved ancestors who would have been recorded in tax assessments rather than in census records, because, of course, at the time they were regarded as property. Tax lists are especially welcome as a replacement for records where areas where we have suffered census loss, such as the 1890 census. And even sometimes when census records are complete, you can use tax records to fill in the details. Naturalization records. They illustrate the process by which an immigrant goes through to become an American citizen. Records such as a declaration of intent, petition for citizenship or naturalization, certificate of arrival, certificate of naturalization, offer documentation that provide an abundance of information on family origins. Naturalization records can provide the origins of an immigrant, the place and date of birth, their age, address, former aliases, occupations, children, marital information, and where and when they arrived in the United States. These records are organized by last name, date, and county, place of origin, which make these searches very easy for genealogists to pinpoint a certain ancestor. When a husband is naturalized, the wife usually was automatically naturalized under her husband's name. Apprentice indentures reflect a person's time as an apprentice to another individual or a master to learn a skill, trade, or occupation. Apprenticeships lasted for a certain period of years, and indenture records often include the apprentice's name, the person they're apprenticed to, their gender, their race, and the dates or the time frame in which they were indentured. Many of these legal agreements also indicate a parent or a guardian of the apprentice, as they were mostly minors when contracted. It also includes the terms and conditions of the apprenticeship. Apprentice indenture records are often useful to fill in and construct the timeline of ancestors in their early years or childhood, and of course to connect them to parents and guardians that might not have otherwise been recorded. The records of the trustees of the poor are an excellent resource to discover lost relatives or otherwise unrecorded relatives. These can often fill in gaps that relatives that weren't recorded in other vital statistics or conventional resources. And they provide a fascinating look into the history of public welfare in the state of Delaware. These are recorded by county, and they include almshouse registers of birth and deaths, pauper books and lists, burial records, bastardy bonds, account books, and trustees' reports. Now, pauper lists don't just include people who were impoverished, but they also often include people who were either physically or mentally disabled or suffering from mental illness. Coroner inquests include records that are investigative reports into the cause of death related to a suspicious or unusual circumstance. The records include information about the person's name, the county that they're from, the date and place of their death, the cause of their death, their race, age, gender, as well as jurors and witnesses related to the inquest itself. Many of these records date back to the 1700s and go through the mid-20th century. This can often shed more light onto the matter that is noted on the death register. And here we see an example of a Jane Messick who came to her death by accidentally falling in the fire. In addition, we have many private accounts. These are a collection of volumes relating to commercial activities of private individuals and businesses throughout the state from around 1725 to the mid to late 20th century. And these are arranged by county. Again, looking for individual names within the area will provide you a lot of subsequent information about types of things that your ancestors might have valued or have purchased, including, as we see here in the top left corner, a Mary King who bought 1 bottle of snuff. City and telephone directories list residents alphabetically by name. Information often include their occupation and address. For example, we see here a Hannah Benton listed as the widow of John, again providing excellent familial connections as well as information about what types of professions individuals might have conducted. We have telephone directories on reference reels in our research room, which start back from around 1899 and go through the 20th century. Some of these are recorded on Ancestry. So if you do have access and an Ancestry account, these may be accessible there. In addition, of course, census records, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. The census started in 1790. From 1800 to 1840, only the head of the household was listed on census records. Starting around 1850 to the present, census records started listing the names of the family as well. The 1890 census for Delaware was unfortunately destroyed in a fire. So that information has been attempted to be recreated. Do have some reference points for that if you are interested in looking at that. We also have census information for agricultural schedules for all 3 counties, as well as industry schedules and mortality and insane schedules for Delaware. And of course, we do within the archive have access to Ancestry, which is the world's largest genealogy site, as a number of our Delaware records are available on Ancestry for searching. And within Delaware, if you are a Delaware resident, you can view Ancestry by using through the archives website by using your Delaware zip code. Within the research room, we also have Ancestry available to researchers to conduct the research in-house. And of course, Family Search as well also includes a number of our records and is available from the comfort of your own home. Here is our website. Here we have a wide digital archive, including photograph collection, postcard collections, manuscripts, maps, ebooks, and town and city histories. We also have a searchable portal on which you can search things like the Apprentice Indentures, Bible records, prints and posters, church records, civil list, coroner inquests, the Sons of the American Revolution, election results, enrolled bills, as well as our general reference collection. This is our research room. You'll see on the right is our current research room as it exists and a previous example of what it used to look like. We welcome walk-in visitors, and we also, of course, accept inquiries via email, which is on our last slide here. We encourage any email inquiries to be very detailed and specific references, and we are happy to respond by those. And of course, we are happy to accept appointments. If you have a specific area of interest, do email us, and we would be happy to arrange an appointment for you to come and visit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation.
Absolutely.
All right, so first one is, would you have birth records for Wilmington in 1804?
We don't have specific records. We may have individual records that were compiled from other sources. So in 1804, that is too early to have either the county or the state keeping detailed records. But we do have compiled records that we have indexed, which might be from things like Bible records or Chancery Court records or baptisms or something along those lines. So if you have a specific ancestor that you're looking for with a specific date, it can be useful to check our indexes for those individuals and see if we might have record of them elsewhere.
How far back do the deed records go?
Deed records go back to prior to the formation of the state. So really, we do have all the way back to the time of William Penn. So we're looking at around 1680s, our earliest deed records.
Were the Beers Atlas maps done for other states to your knowledge, or is Delaware only?
I am not aware if they did them for other states. They're an incredible resource. So I certainly hope that they did offer them for other states, because they can be really, really useful for that time period in particular to locate ancestors in a particular place and then discover not only do they include things like business directories, so an early sort of telephone directory before there were telephones, but also information about neighbors and the types of communities that individuals lived in. They're just a fascinating thing to peruse, even if you're not looking for an individual, just to get a sense of what the landscape and the communities looked like at the time.
Please give us information on the importance of property record cards. Are they found in every state?
Can you explain what you mean by property record cards?
We will wait on the person to respond.
Sure.
Why are the private accounts listed? Was this on death or those without real property or for some other reason?
So the private accounts that I mentioned are actually like ledgers that were kept by merchants or people in business. And so in those instances, as the example that I showed with a woman buying snuff, it was as if you can imagine someone going to a store and would have an account and all of the items that they would purchase there. But it does give a really interesting example of what your ancestors might have purchased, as well as where they were at any given time. So it's very specific to particular place and time, but those types of records can be very illustrative of the details of ancestors' lives that often get missed.
Can you contact you guys with the phone number and email address if you're out of state?
We try to keep our phone number for what we refer to as vital statistic emergencies. So, because as you noted, our vital statistics are fairly recent, they do impact people who are still living. So, people who are 72 years of age and older may need to access their birth record or their marriage record, or someone might need to access a death record for Social Security purposes or something along those lines. So we do try to keep our phone lines open for those types of emergencies. If you do end up calling and asking a genealogical question, we'll probably ask you to email us instead. And that just gives us the opportunity as a research staff to look at your question. Maybe several of us will tackle it together and compile a list of information that we can provide back to you. It also gives you the opportunity to put down as much information as you can to help us to locate the particular reference that you're looking for, such as linking to the reference that you saw that made you believe that we might have it, such as I saw that somebody sold property at this time. Is there a deed connected to that? Or I understand my ancestor passed at this time. Is there a probate record for them? Those types of things would allow us to give a little bit of attention to and do that research.
It looks like that was the last question.
Excellent.
I will note that this presentation will be on our YouTube page. So if this is of interest to you to refer back to later, please hop on at a later date. And the handout is still on our website if you would like to take a look at it. But Leah, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. We very much appreciate you.
Thank you so much.